Hey everyone, JB here, the real Wolf of Wall Street in the Wolf's Den with another awesome episode here. Now, sometimes I spend 10 or 15 minutes giving my version of the world and whatever's on my mind for the day because I feel like doing that. But today, I have such a cool, important guest. Someone I think who has information that's so vital, I'm not going to say anything other than you need to meet this man, Chris Voss, former FBI negotiator extraordinaire, written many books. Never Split the Difference is one you might have heard of. We have an incredible conversation where we really dig into this idea of what's the difference between sales and negotiation and where do they overlap, how are they different. It's really powerful stuff. You don't want to miss a second of it. First, a quick word from our sponsors to pay the bills, and then you will listen to Chris Voss and I go at it, and it is worth the price of admission. All right, so I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite parts of every morning, and that's when I have my Athletic Greens. So right now, Athletic Greens is offering a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs for the Wolf Den listeners. You'll basically never have to buy vitamin D again. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus to get started with this limited time offer. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. All right, so Chris Voss, thanks for coming on. You obviously are an expert in negotiation, right? And I want to get right to that and discover and dig into some of the things about, like, how does negotiation differ from sales and persuasion? Or are they one and the same, or is it a different side of the same coin here? So let's start with the fact of, like, how would you say negotiation differs from a sale?
Yeah, that's one of the questions that we struggle with all the time. They're so closely interlinked. I think potentially in the sales, me being a negotiator, maybe sales a little more involved in creating the initial attraction, which then begins to, when does that become marketing? I don't know. But as soon as I want or I need are in anybody's head, in my view, you're in a negotiation. So do I need cooperation? Do I need collaboration? Do I need somebody else to do something? I see that as a negotiation. I'm not sure that I could draw a clear, distinct line between the two. What about you?
I think the way I would look at it is, okay, so when I'm in a sales setting, I always say you have the first 4 seconds. That first impression is critical because it establishes that unconscious thing. Are you an expert in your field? Are you a novice? Are you sharp? Or so would you say those first 4 seconds are equally important in a negotiation?
Yeah, I mean, I usually refer to it as the first 7 seconds. What do you have to establish in the first 7 seconds? What are those elements? And then how do you establish those elements? It's one thing to know what they are and completely another one to be able to establish them.
Exactly, right. Right, exactly. So, that's why I make fun of that. I said, I've been saying it's 4 seconds since I think 1988, and then Harvard did a study that it's 7 seconds. It's like, well, I guess I was wrong, but I beat him by 25 years, so I feel pretty good about it, because I've been saying that always.
That was one of the reasons why I enjoyed reading your book, because you not being an academic to start off with, yours, regardless, let's take out morality, all the other external nonsense out of it. You're phenomenally successful, period. In a time period before this stuff was established via academic rigor. So you got gut instinct. What is your gut instinct? And so if your gut instinct was telling you 25 years ago was 4 seconds,
you got a few seconds.
7.
Exactly,
Same
right.
thing. You get great gut instinct. I think your gut instinct.
My gut was, and the reason was that unless in those first few seconds, whatever they are, they don't have that right sense of you, they will try to take control of the conversation. And so the next step, I would say, so we both agree, whether it's a negotiation or a sale, the first few seconds critical. And the reason for me that it's so critical from a sales point of view is that it establishes you as an expert, that allows you to control the flow of the encounter. Because if they perceive you as a novice, they will try to control the flow. Is it the same in a negotiation?
close. And what defines control? Like, I like to say a secret to gaining the upper hand in a negotiation is giving the other side the illusion of control. I mean, in a negotiation in particular, at some point in time, there's going to be autonomy issues. The other side's got to feel autonomous, so they're going to push back. So if I give you the illusion of control, your autonomy is never going to be threatened. And therefore, I could guide you, what's guiding and what's controlling. Semantics is what we're talking about. And
sure.
What do you call it? What do I call it?
What would you explain to me what you mean by the sort of like the illusion of control? Like from a sales perspective, it would be that a novice salesperson thinks that control means you're doing all the talking, when in reality, control in sales means you've asked a really important question and they're talking and you're listening. You're in control. Even though they're talking, you're actually in control because they're answering a question that you asked. So is that very similar to negotiation or different?
Yeah, I would talk about I want to trigger specific thought process on your side. I might want to get a very specific sequence of thoughts going on your side. You're talking about asking a question in order to trigger thinking in the other side. I'm trying to trigger very specific types of thinking in the other side.
Got it. So very similar again, right? And is there a certain point in time? And also, one of the things that I teach in sales is that it's very important that it's not just your body language when you ask a question. It's how you respond both tonally and body language as you listen. So it's all those ahas, yups, yup, of course. It's those that the interaction while someone else is talking that lets them know you understand them, you feel their pain, it makes sense, you're in their same sphere of understanding. Is that part of what you think is important in negotiation?
1,000%. And that was one of the things when I read your book that I thought was a really brilliant part of it, is having never interacted with you before, I figured you were a master of tonality.
Right. Which is important for sure. And also, but tonality when you're listening as well. Like, I think people forget that. It's it's really important, I think, when you ask someone a question and they answer, and as they're answering, you're like, oh, yup, got it. And that shows them that you understand them. You're on the same page, so to speak.
Yeah, you're encouraging them. You're making them feel good about the interaction. You're making them feel regard and respect.
Exactly.
It means they want to talk some more, right? You let them talk themselves into your deal.
And then the next spot, is there a certain point in negotiating when you say, okay, we've kind of gotten to this point where I know what I need to know. I've asked what I have to ask. And you have to say, well, it's time for solutions, so to speak, of here's the deal. Is there a certain crossover point?
Yeah, well, gut instinct. I mean, as the other side talked enough so that we've laid out a pretty good deal on the table between the two of us. Have we got the elements here for a great deal? A great, a deal that you're going to love, a deal that you're going to feel good about. Yeah, and so then I'm gonna set it up. If I'm ready to move forward, there's a pretty good chance. Again, and we're gonna go back to this whole idea of questions. If I think we're at the part where we should move forward, start cutting this deal, I'm gonna say something to the effect of, "How do you want to proceed? What's the next step? What's the next best step?" I'm gonna tee it up with a question where I'm trying to trigger your thinking.
Let's go back now to pure negotiation. First of all, how did you get into this? Was it an accidental pathway? You just sort of stumbled in, or one day you said, you know what, I want to be a negotiator, and I guess you were in the FBI, and how did that come about?
Yeah, no, it was definitely accidental plan B as a result of something really bad. The best things in my life that happened to me came as a result of what externally seemed like a bad thing. So I was FBI, SWAT, tried out for the Bureau's hostage rescue team, which is an FBI equivalent of the Navy SEALs. A lot of them are former SEALs. Re-injured my knee. Realized and had it reconstructed yet again. Realized
I'm in there right now, by the way, going through that right now with my knee. I can't believe you just said that. Okay, keep going. Disaster. It's I understand. I feel your pain.
yeah, exactly. So, but I'm all right, so I love crisis response because I like decisions. In a crisis, people have to make decisions. This dithering of inaction drives me crazy. So we had hostage negotiators. I didn't know what they did. It didn't sound that hard. I could do that. I could talk to terrorists. How hard could it be? And so I want to stay in crisis response. And I made the shift. Rather difficult one, was initially rejected to be a hostage negotiator, but found my way there anyway.
I guess there's the questions that I want to ask you, because I feel like I'm like a 10-year-old boy speaking to a police officer, and I want to know the secret. And there's the ones I think that are more appropriate to ask on this podcast that will give people the most value. But I have to ask you at least one of the questions that like any young boy would ask. What's the coolest thing that ever happened to you? Like, what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you as an FBI hostage negotiator? Give me something like really a great, amazing story. Just for the hell of it.
Just one. All right. So, we set up outside of an apartment where some fugitives on 27th floor of a high rise in Harlem, back when Harlem was a tough place, not all gentrified like it is now. And we took the circus, and we took SWAT, we took everybody. And we were sure that these guys were not there. Now they were. They had been involved in a shootout with automatic weapons just a couple of days before. We figured the sounds of the circus coming up the stairs, they're going to be long gone. We spoke to that apartment. They didn't say a word for 6 straight hours. One-way dialogue. At one point in time, before we knew they were inside, one of the SWAT guys said to me, like, if I was inside, I'd have come out. You're doing a great job. And about 6 hours in, one of the snipers on a nearby building said, we just saw a curtain move, and we were sure it was empty. Now we know these guys are inside. Bottom line, we talked all 3 of them out. They never said a word. They come out in utter silence. We talked all of them out. 6 hours of non-responsive one-way dialogue. They all surrendered. That was a great feeling.
How did you... Was that a strategy that you ran, or is it just sort of finding your way, hit or miss?
Now, you got a basic offense, a basic game plan. One of them is repetition. The other is the hostage negotiator's voice, which is a late night FM DJ voice.
By the way, I was going to say, if you don't do this, you could definitely have gone and be like Carol. What was her name? Carol King at 95.5 WPLJ. And you got that great DJ's voice for sure.
I get the DJ's voice. It's a soothing voice. But then basically, to use sales terms, we talked to them about what the close would look like for 6 hours, which I said, when you come on, you kind of come out with your hands first. Going to make sure that we can see you so that nothing bad happens to you. You're going to move out slowly. Nobody's going to hurt you. You're going to be treated with dignity and respect. So we're painting this picture of a peaceful surrender where nobody gets hurt for 6 hours. And finally, they're like, well, these guys aren't going away. I might as well come out and not get hurt. And they came out.
Right. She just wore them down basically with repetition and sort of language patterns, almost hypnotic language patterns, where you're just implanting that same thought again and again and again.
Yeah. And then, like, we used a total of 3 negotiators. And every time, because we switched out, I'd talk for about an hour and I'd hand it off to somebody else. And I'd say, Emilio's getting ready to come on now. He's going to talk to you. And we're not going away. And then when I came back an hour later, I said, all right, it's Chris again. It's like I said, we're not leaving. We're not going away till you come out. And we're just not going to go away. And ultimately, when it came out, it was kind of funny. I said to him, you didn't speak for the whole time. Why didn't you talk? Why didn't you say something? And they said, well, we wanted to get away. And I said, well, then why did you come out? And they said, well, you kept saying you weren't going away. So we finally believed you and decided to come out.
Is there a particular Hollywood movie that you would say best captures what it is an FBI hostage negotiator really does?
Well, let's say negotiators overall. I mean, the Negotiator was Samuel Jackson and Kevin Spacey. That was the closest. Now, there's a few fundamental flaws there. But we used to actually occasionally use clips from that movie as teaching points. So it was as close as anything I've seen Hollywood do.
Got it. And what's the worst, like what's the worst characterization? Die Hard? No.
No, I
Remember
saw,
Die Hard?
unfortunately,
FBI
I saw.
guys?
Yeah, oh yeah, we need 2 more FBI guys, right? Yeah. Bruce Willis, who I think is a wonderful actor. He was in some Negotiators movie that I couldn't. The first 3 minutes of it, I couldn't watch anymore. Like,
Which one was that?
It was so horrible. I mean, God bless him. He's out there. He's a phenomenal actor and all sorts
great
of
actor. Yeah, great actor.
Great
Yeah. He's only reading it.
He can make a bad movie.
He didn't write the script, so it's not his fault.
No, he was getting paid.
Exactly.
That one was better. What Eddie Murphy in Metro, I think, where he runs inside right away, to talk to the bad guys. That's a good way to get people killed. You want to stay away from that idea.
I think I saw another movie like that recently. The FBI just goes, he's like the great, he just walks right in. That's his methodology. That's going to get people killed, right?
And unfortunately, it has. I mean, every couple years, some sheriff someplace or some chief of police, because they saw it on TV, they say, I'm gonna go here and talk to him myself, and they go in, they get shot, and then the guy's family says, well, he saw it on TV. Like, yeah, well, it got him killed, didn't it?
It's for again, I'm intrigued by more of the FBI stuff for the sake of great stories, but I also want to get the business parallels to that in the world of business and sales. But I mean, just like in terms of let's just starting with FBI or like that hostage negotiations. What are the first rules of thumb? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Is it go like that?
Yeah, no, we're gonna want to get the conversation started as quickly as we can, because as soon as the other side starts to hear my voice, from that moment on, I got influence. So I might as well start building my influence right away. I got an opening line, and after that, it's complete ad lib. But there's certain things that I'm trying to do, which is calm them down, reassure them, start painting a picture of coming out safely.
Got it. So basically, we're not leaving, and the only way out, come out slowly, calmly. We're going to show you dignity, respect. No one's going to hurt you, basically, right? It's an easy, peaceful, painting a picture of a way out that doesn't have them or the people that they're with end up dead and complicate whatever they've already done wrong, basically, right?
Yeah, and exactly. Don't want to complicate it. Want to retain dignity. I mean, the reality really is, you never know what a jury's going to do at a trial. So no matter what you've done, you got a shot at mitigating it. When I was in New York in the early days, William Kunstler, a famous radical attorney,
I remember him.
He got, El Sayed Nosser assassinated Meir Kahane, the founder of the Jewish Defense League.
I remember the whole thing happened. I remember that. Yeah, sure.
Kunstler is Nosser's attorney, gets Nosser acquitted of shooting Kahane at the state trial. Nosser shot Kahane in front of witnesses. Gets Nosser acquitted of shooting of the murder. He gets convicted on being in possession of the gun that killed Kahane, but he doesn't get convicted of the murder.
How is that? How do you do that?
They convinced them. Kunstler came up with a story that Nosser, as an Arab, was standing next to Kahane when he got shot, and everybody said, "Get the Arab." And so Nosser shot his way out of self-defense because he was going to get blamed for the murder. And Kunstler spun a good enough yarn that the jury
reasonable doubt. Yeah, sounds like jury nullification more than anything else. How many years were you with the FBI?
24.
Did you know Agent Coleman, who is now a friend of mine? I love the guy who chased me and got me indicted. Did you ever meet him?
That's white. You were in. That was the white collar days, man. That white collar investigations. That's too complicated for me. You need somebody way smarter than me to catch somebody like you.
He was the most dogged. He's actually a friend of mine now. I have great respect for him, but he was the most dogged, determined guy. And what's really interesting is that my perception of the FBI was so positive always. Like after dealing with them, I dealt with them, right? And they were, I never had anything to say like, yeah, I deserve what I got. And they were, even when they picked me up at my house, they were like really respectful. They didn't raid my house. They like, actually let me, my kids were there like, hey, you want to go inside and, get yourself, put your kids upstairs. Like I had a really, left with a really positive taste as I would expect you would. It's I'm an American. I'm not going to kill them, right? Do you think that something has gone wrong with the FBI in the sense that like with these sort of things that happen like in the last 5 years, or is it just sort of extreme examples of a couple of cases that were maybe not what we all know, and that it's still the way it was? You know what I'm driving at?
Rank and file. The FBI, the real FBI, exists at the street level.
Rank and file.
Rank and file, that hasn't changed. Agents want to make cases. Agents want to treat people with dignity and respect. A friend of mine wrote a book called The Threat Matrix about the Bureau under Mueller. And I turned him on to some of the right people to talk to. Brad Garrett. Not Brad Garrett. His name will come back to me. But so I'm helping him because he put together the case behind 9/11 and the investigation of that. So I said to him afterwards, all right, so what's your opinion of FBI headquarters now that you've had a good hard look at headquarters? And he says to me, the FBI has always succeeded despite FBI headquarters. So the rank and file FBI agents, solid people, has not changed, want to put bad guys in jail. That's it. Don't care who the bad guys are. Don't care. That
was my experience, 100%.
With their politics.
100%. That was my experience. And so I think it's really concentrated at the top. And you think it's gotten more political in the last 10 years, or it's always been that way?
No, and it's not political either. I mean, it's a function of bureaucracy, and nobody likes bureaucracy. So no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're Republican, you're Democrat, whether you're vegan, you're not going to like it, the decisions that a bureaucracy makes overall. It's just bureaucracy. It's not political. I'm telling you.
Well, the bureaucracy always acts to protect itself more than anything else. It's like it's about self-protection, not so much protection for one party or another, just protecting the bureaucracy, right? So it's almost self-serving and self-reinforcing. It almost like all these bureaucracies become an exaggeration of themselves. What they ended up starting, it had a good purpose to start, but the bureaucracy self-reinforces and protects. It ends up as an exaggeration of their own ethical message, and anything too much to an extreme becomes no good. Is that kind of what happens, you think?
And really the proof that it's really apolitical, because who wasn't unhappy with James Comey? The Republicans and the Democrats. They were both mad at him. I mean, that tells you somebody's apolitical when both sides are angry with him.
Well, like the fact that he, like with Hillary Clinton, like a few weeks before announcing that, was like, you'd say, was he working for Trump? You would have thought, like, the odd thing is like, it really was so odd, the whole thing. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff here, which is really, I want you as a master of negotiation to really give us, like, in the business world now, like, what is it? I know it, and again, I know, like, I have a theory, every sale's the same, but of course, meaning that there are certain key elements that must line up. And I'm sure the same is of negotiations, but everyone is different within that sort of, that matrix, that there are variables, but the way you handle them is always basically the same. My goal as a salesperson is to corral it as much as possible and move it from one point to another, open to close. So I assume it's pretty similar from your perspective with negotiation. So what are your steps, if you can lay them out, like sort of, 5, you started on some already, but like, your sort of steps for how you go about in the business world, getting the best deal possible, whatever you do.
Yeah, well, I want to establish a great relationship so that you're comfortable working with me. And I want to gather up as much information as possible, because there's always a better deal to be had. Always, always, always. How do I find that deal? I got to get you comfortable enough to deal with me so that you start telling me stuff you're scared to tell anybody else. The stuff that you're hiding, because you're scared it'll make you vulnerable. If it'll make you vulnerable, there's also great opportunity there.
All right, so I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite parts of every morning, and that's when I have my Athletic Greens. Listen, Athletic Greens is my absolute favorite nutritional supplement. Gives me an extra boost for the day. If you know anything about me, then you know that personal performance is a very high priority for me. One scoop of Athletic Greens, I get that feeling, that tingling sensation when your brain and your body are really firing off together perfectly. And that's when I know I'm ready to go out and close at the highest level possible as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. Makes sense? So whether you're training for a marathon, you're trying to lose a few pounds, or you want to elevate your energy and your focus, Athletic Greens is for you. And if your results are anything like mine, I can virtually guarantee you'll have that extra edge in performance that sets you apart. And here's the deal. Right now, Athletic Greens is offering a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs for the Wolf Den listeners. You'll basically never have to buy vitamin D again. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus to get started with this limited time offer. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Give me an example. You said before, you brought up a great point, which is something that pisses me off with so many people that teach sales or negotiation that don't recognize what you said, is that it's one thing to say it's the first 4 seconds. It's another thing to know how to do it, right? Like some people say, oh yeah, you gotta get it for how? I'm like, right? So I'm a big believer in my book. I show you exactly from my perspective in sales, how you go about doing that. And I get really granular, right? And I know that you probably appreciate that because you do the same. So what are your strategies as a negotiator for, like, how do you uncover, in this instance, you put up a great point, because I say there's these intangibles, almost these things of value. They have massive value to the other side, but maybe not so much value to you. That's a huge opportunity in negotiation, right? How do you drag those things out of someone else without breaking the wall?
One of our favorite ones that we really use a lot is, I get you correcting me. I'll say stuff wrong on purpose. Now, most people won't do that because they think, I got to know everything. I can't be corrected. I can't be wrong. Being wrong is embarrassing. Most people would rather die than be embarrassed.
Give me an example. That's a great idea. Give me an example of that. Like what you would do, like say something wrong on purpose. Give me an example.
I'll say, it seems like Jim on your side of the table is really against this. If Jim is in favor of it, you're going to go like, no, Jim's good. It's Bob who's against it. Now you just gave me information I'd have never gotten out of you otherwise that you shouldn't have told me, ever. You just threw Bob effectively, but I'm not going to hurt Bob. Now I got a great diagnosis where the problems are. And you're never going to regret telling me that, because your correction, for me, a correction's embarrassment. For you, it feels great.
Would it be also like when you do it with like price? It sounds like maybe you guys, this is a bit above your budget. Like that's kind of what's bothering you. Say, no. Would you use it for that, or more for like, how far would you go with that sort of strategy?
As your gut instinct, I know, tells you, price isn't the issue. The issue is value. So somebody pushes, and if that's the case, then changing the price is not going to make it a better deal. Mm-hmm. So I need to know what's going to make it a better deal. So I'll say, if you got a problem with price, I'm going to say, boy, it sounds like the value is just not there for you. Again, there's a correcting reaction on your part. And you probably say like, yeah, well, now that you bring it up, X, Y, Z, here's where the problems are. Now I got an opportunity to fix this. And there's a real chance that the way you want it fixed is actually going to increase my profit. There's enough of a chance that I want to find out how you want it fixed first.
Right. Would you say that the biggest mistake that people make in negotiations, they don't take the time to find out the things that are really important to the other side? They almost use their own map of the world and assume they can play mind reading games. Like they're the great Kreskin. They know what the other person wants. They know the things that matter to them. And they end up focusing and negotiating and focusing on the wrong elements of the negotiation. Would you say it's very common?
I agree 100%. That may be one of the biggest problems. Anybody that's whatever they're in, if they've been doing it for more than 6 months, they want to show how smart they are, which means they're not getting information from the other side. Right.
So do you typically, when you teach negotiation, do you have a formal, like sort of like the ABCs of this stuff that how many steps have you broken it down to steps, like discerning steps like that?
we teach more skill-based stuff and adaptability of skills.
Got it.
There is a basic progression, but the more you get focused on steps per se, which I know that you've run into this, people get real focused on the steps and they stop paying attention to the other side and the cues the other side's giving them.
My issue was when I first invented the system I teach, it was the people who weren't really that intelligent. I was teaching it to kids that really barely clawed their way out of high school. It had to be really simple, you know? So it's like step one, step two. But you're right in the sense that one of the things that I always make sure that I also reinforce is the fluidity. That, in other words, that just, yes, like in a perfect world, this happens, then that 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 happens, right? But in reality, in the real world, what often happens is you are moving around these steps in sort of, have these boundaries above and below that represent the wiggle room that in the natural flow of an encounter, it's not just going to be A, B, C, D. Yeah, once in a while, you get a perfect sale like that or a perfect negotiation where they just are just right on board, but there's that wiggle room. So what you do is you really focus on the actual skills and strategies that would really apply to any aspect of the negotiation, right? Is that part of what the cornerstone of what you're teaching? These are general skills that are always important in negotiating.
Yeah, get the basics of the skills down. And as you repeat them over and over again, it's like ad-libbing music. Suddenly you can ad-lib in the moment. It's why Michael Wheeler, who's a friend, colleague, teaches at Harvard Business School, he actually has a jazz musician come into his negotiation classes to give people the idea of improv and ad-libbing in the moment.
You know how I explain it? Great. It's a great analogy. I explain it by saying, imagine it's like a train of boxcars. And the way they all connect together is you as long as you know what the front and the back, if you have the front and the back down pat, if those are lockstep, you can latch on the front to any back and the back to any front. So that's right. When I teach people, it's like you don't have to know everything that happens. Like you can't be rote, as you said, in the middle. But as long as I know the entry point and exit point from each step. So what happens if you know in my stuff, it's a lot of language patterns, right? And you need to make sure, what I find with salespeople that aren't natural salespeople is that they don't have it memorized, like a one sentence or two. Their conscious mind is so caught up in the words that they can't use their unconscious mind. Like they get locked up. So what I do is I get them to memorize just the last line of a certain pattern. So when they start to end one chunk of a sale, their unconscious mind takes over, and they can start thinking about, okay, now where am I going next? Where am I going next? Where am I going? So as they're talking, they're actually, as a pro, like you and I, we're naturals, right? We're talking, and you're talking, and at the end, you know where you're going next. Your mind's working in two directions at once here, right? So what we do is we try to teach people how to like almost know each piece, but make sure you know the beginning and the end really well, and then you can start, like you said, improvising and creating beautiful music by moving the cars around one this way, that way, right? You see, it's kind of a very similar idea.
Yeah, and that sort of instruction, you're trying to give people enough comfort level so that they're not afraid. Now they can think in the moment instead of being overcome by fear.
Exactly. Give me an example of a business. You don't have to get with the name, but just like an industry that where you entered in negotiation. You could, make it generic something, like a great example. If you can say a product, that's great too, where you really helped them, how powerful it was, like how you went in there in a tough negotiation and really made a huge difference. You can kind of lay that out. You could leave names out if you have to.
Wow. I'm
sure there's so many, but I want to hear a good one, a good story.
No, one of my guys coached a negotiation. One was trying to settle with an insurance company, and they actually had 2 weeks left when the insurance company didn't have to pay them at all because they drug their feet so long on a payment. And not only was it 2 weeks left, but it was mid-December, which means all they had to do was run out the clock. And how often can you get anybody to do anything in December because it's the holidays and nobody's working anyway? So we coached on the approach. And they settled. They had previously offered $2,000. and they settled on December 23rd for $25,000. When if they'd have waited another week, they wouldn't have had to pay him a dime. But it was a legitimate insurance claim, and the insurance rep on the other side was a human being, and human beings want to do the right things if given the opportunity.
And how did you? What was the strategy that you used to expedite the settlement?
Yeah, well, the strategy that gets in anybody's decision making way are negative emotions. Your emotional wiring, your survival mode is 75% negative. So if I can shut down the negatives by simply articulating them, that's going to be the fastest way to shut them down. So we had this person say, I'm probably looking like a money grubber who's been lazy, who's delayed, who's been unresponsive, who doesn't care about the insurance company and probably doesn't even need the money. Suddenly they're in a conversation. Because what's the insurance person on the other side? These people are money grubbers. They don't need the money. They're lazy. They've been unresponsive. They don't care about me. So you deactivate their negative perceptions of you by simply stating them fearlessly. And people suddenly go like, wow, now you're in a conversation.
You know what's amazing is that one of the core strategies of the straight line is literally directly that. So what we have, I call it, lowering someone's action threshold, where I say that, and I always say that we're fear-based creatures. It's funny that we say the same things in different ways. It's wired into our reptilian brain. The fear is first, it's the fear of loss, the downside. People always look at the downside first. And one of the biggest mistakes that salespeople make, and I know this from my own dad, he was the toughest person to sell to in the world. And the reason is that when he was faced with a buying decision, we always run two movies. Well, if I say yes, what's my best outcome? Or if I say yes, what's my worst? What's the downside? And most people will go heavily to so the point is, if I say to my dad, well, what's the worst that can happen? If I don't tell him, he will say, he'll be dead, destroyed, living in the street, embarrassed, vilified by his friends, embarrassed in front of his wife. He'll create this crazy narrative in his own mind and go heavily to the negative as someone who doesn't like to buy stuff, versus actually you verbalizing something. Here's what's the worst that could happen. You lose a few dollars, right? You'll cash in your money back guarantee, and you can fire me as your broker, and we'll part as friends. Not going to be the end of the world, right? So it's like same thing. You're disarming their negative narrative by actually stating it, saying, bring it out. Here's the word. And once you've done, they're like, yeah, well, that's true. Then you say, but on the upside, then you start actually running the upside benefits, which these people never really do. Someone like my father who hates to buy stuff, he runs a very long negative downside movie, very short positive upside one. So what you do is you almost hijack their strategy by saying, well, listen, here's the downside. Let me just tell you. And you say, right? They say, well, yeah, I guess so. They never do that. I say, but on the upside, then you run the long upside movie. They typically never do. And it has a dramatic impact on getting people to buy, or I guess in your case, to settle. So it's really interesting to me that how similar the processes are, where you can find these little parallels all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. And a sequence that you outlined is critical. You got to take care of the negative first.
Totally.
Then
1,000%.
You can unleash the positive. Positive gets ridiculously powerful if you get the negative out of the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's so funny, as you said, I did this in an unschooled, intuitive way. Yeah. And, and then many years as you've done and you've studied, there is all these sort of different supporting bodies of knowledge of how people really, think and how the brain actually works and makes decisions. Have you ever studied NLP at all, neuro-linguistic programming?
Yeah, I never have. I've gotten so much feedback that there are a lot of parallels and overlap.
That's why I bring it up.
Study it. I just never have.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There are, and I think you would probably, I doubt you learn anything new, really. What you would say is, yeah, yep, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, that's a bit, NLP can be really powerful. The problem with NLP is mostly that it's used, it's misused by people who don't really know how to use it. It's too easy to become certified in NLP, and I'm certified. It's like you get in a Cracker Jack box. That's the problem. But for those that really do know how to use it, it's powerful stuff, because it is all the same. Some of these very powerful strategies, and then it gets down. How well can you really apply them? Would you say in all your career, Has there ever been a situation where you say, there's really it's a no win to go. There is no way to win this thing. It's a lose-lose. And does it ever get to that point where you feel like there's really nowhere to go? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, first of all, basic hostage negotiation stats, 93% close rate. All right. Which means 7% of the time it ain't going to work out. That it's there. Best chance of success is not a guarantee of success.
Sure.
And one of our challenges, Gary Nestner, my former boss at the hostage negotiation, crisis negotiation unit, he developed a set of criteria called high risk indicators. How do we spot this right off the bat? Is there a profile, to use a dirty word? We're doing the same thing now in business. There's some deals that you are never going to get. Right. Let's just recognize them sooner. It's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's make it shorter.
You have any tripwires like what in a business setting of what, just like, is there any like things where you just say, it's going to be you'll reach that point of diminishing returns really quickly? Do you have any sort of quick tips for that?
Yeah. All right. So vision drives decision. Decision drives action. If we're talking and you have no vision in your head whatsoever of how we're going to proceed, you're not going to. You're kicking the tires. You're looking for me for a competing bid. I'm on a fool's errand. Because if you had any intention of proceeding, you would have already thought it through. You'd have some vision in your head. Vision drives decision. Decision drives action. So I'm going to try to get out of you real early on whether or not you got any vision of me involved in your future. If you don't, then the amount of time it's going to take for me to put that vision in your head, if at all, is not worth my time.
So that's a very good point. So in other words, it's a quick gut check to any before you really start to try to dig in and negotiate would be like, so tell me, how do you see us working together in the future? How do you think honestly, I really, listen, if you want to talk, I will, but I really haven't given it any thought. I mean, I don't like that sort of dismissive, I really don't tell me, go ahead, tell me why I need you in my life, that sort of situation. Right.
Yeah, that would be one real good way to start to tease that out. And I'm going to do a couple things to follow on to see if that indicator is solid or not. But if it hasn't occurred to you at all, right, then this is, we're living on Las Vegas odds here. What are the chances? Right. I want to play at the table where my rate of return is high, and the rate of return where you got no vision of me in your future, that is not high. It's a low 100%.
And I think also like the idea is that it's like almost a function of marketing at that point. Like they haven't even gotten, like they shouldn't really even be in the point of like negotiating a sale, or they really haven't even understood what the value is, the product is. They haven't really dealt with it at a lower level. It's almost like, the sales, that's a cold call. It's an initial call. Because there's a process for getting someone interested and building a vision in someone's mind. Like that's a separate process. I think the point is if you arrive at a negotiation and they haven't even gotten to that, like, whoa, go back. Like, I don't think I'm not the right guy. We're not even at the step that we're even talking about negotiation here. You don't even know what my product does, how it could benefit you, and you haven't even imagined how it would look for you in the future, how you'd feel using they haven't even gotten to the point where it's really in negotiation. That's really the point more than anything. Am I right? Yeah, it's not going to be or it may never be. I mean, one of the books out there that everybody raved about, the Challenger sale. I mean, they said the idea of being a challenger is a good idea. They just don't tell you how to do it. But one of the things that is dead on in that book is they did a survey of executives, which is basically, how often do you engage in a company having no intention of doing business with them? They're a competing bid, they're due diligence, they're there to drive the price down on somebody else. And the executives admitted to 20% of the time. Now that's not a low number, because basically they're asking executives, how often do you lie to people about doing business? Yeah, 2 out of 10 times, right? Yeah, sure. You're not going to exaggerate that, you're going to underestimate it. So 20% of the time, there's no deal for you there ever. Now let's tease that out sooner so we stop wasting our time on these people. What do you think about all the people that out there that teach things like sales and persuasion and negotiation and so many? Like when I saw you were in the market, I said, all right, well, that makes sense. The guy's obviously an expert, right? He's credentialed. He's done his stuff. I read your stuff. It was great, right? Does it ever annoy you when there's people who are like just complete charlatans out there teaching sales and negotiation? Or you must run into them, I assume, right? Like they really have no business. They probably stole my book. They read my book, they read your book and a couple other books, and they're trying to make something up that's theirs with all our stuff. Does that ever annoy you, or you think it's dangerous?
Well, there's kind of two types out there. There's a type that, that they're stealing other people's stuff. They're repackaging the way of the wolf. They're repackaging it and they're claiming that it's their own. Yeah. But then the other problem is a lot of people are good at it, can't explain it. So they may have a great track record. They might not be able to tell you in any way, shape, or form how they got there. Right. So if you're going to learn, you got to tease through both of those things. Can they explain it? Were they ever any good at it? You got to have both of those things.
How does someone, if they what's the first step? Because everyone listening, I've gone through your stuff. It's amazing. And I use it in my stuff. I integrated some of your stuff into my stuff, and because that's what I do. And I think a lot of it overlaps, but it's just going to clarify my thinking on things. So what's the first thing that someone wants to start really studying and learning your stuff? What's the first step to doing that? What's the first book they should read, or first program, or I'm sure you have some free stuff you give away? What's the first way they should start really getting your stuff integrated into their own business model?
Well, or let's start with the assumption that they've either read my book or they've read your book. Right. The very next thing to do to integrate it is start trying it out in low stakes conversations. Like if you want to learn a straight line method, you are not going to drop that in for the first time when you got $100 million on the table. Right. You need to go drop it in when you're at Starbucks or when you're with your Lyft driver. Somebody where you're not so scared of making a mistake. So we coach people. I mean, we say take these 3 steps, call up your utility company. What's the worst that could happen? Your bill's going to be exactly the same next month. And actually the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get some practice. You're going to be able to think about your tone of voice. You're going to be able to think about where it went good, where it went bad. I mean, start trying the stuff out in all of your low stakes conversations. Find out what works. Find out what you're struggling with. Then when you're in a big deal, now you can try it because you got a comfort level with some of it.
Where would they actually find your stuff? Is it on your website? Is it how do they, like if they want to start studying your stuff, is there a course that you sell on top of your book? Is there like a learning product that you have? Where would someone get that? And what's the best one to buy first?
BlackSwanLTD.com is the website. BlackSwanLTD.com. Now the first move is to sign up for our newsletter because it's free. And it's actionable stuff. You explore the website, we got a bunch of free stuff. We got a bunch of expensive stuff.
Like me, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Familiar with the free stuff, the expensive stuff is going to be a waste of your money. We got a ton of free stuff out there that you can make a big difference in your life right away. And just like you, I mean, I know you're trying to help people get their feet under them. And then we'll teach you to run after we've got you walking really well. And that's exactly what our approach is too.
Of the one paid product you have, what's the one you're most proud of that you think is the best one of all that you've developed? That you would say, if anyone wants to buy something from me, I recommend, this is the one I recommend. They've read the free stuff. They want to buy something first. What's your like go-to paid product?
We actually just started doing it. Our skills are called the Negotiation 9 basic skills. We now have a short, concise, affordable, fast, clear dive on what those 9 skills are. It's only a 90-minute training session. We found that we were putting more clarity in that than was really in the book or anywhere else. And people are eating that up. And it's only 90 minutes of your time. And Perfect. The price point, relatively speaking, is lower than the price point for other stuff because it's only 90 minutes.
Sure. All right. Well, guys, let me say this. I don't often recommend, like on my on my show, like, hey, buy this, I'm going to recommend everybody in the world of sales negotiation, just in business in general. I recommend it because, I've been through Chris's stuff. It's awesome. It's the real deal. So check it out. At least check out the free stuff, nothing more. If not, if you've already done that, you should really go for it, because at the end of the day, this sort of stuff pays for itself. It's again and again. It's even worse is that you don't want to look back in 3 years from now and then buy it and say, oh my God, if only I would have bought it 3 years earlier. Like, it was all the deals that you blew or the bad deals that you made. I see it happen all the time where, people go into negotiations. They don't know even the landscape. They don't even know what a good deal looks like, and they don't know how to get there. And it's it's a terrible thing, because it cuts through not just to your business, it's going to cut through when you're buying a home. Most important purchase of many people in their life is their home. It's going to be even when you're talking to your own children, try to get them to do things, make their own beds and do their homework, right, and overcome their own challenges. So I really think, like sales and persuasion, negotiations is one of those cornerstone skills that you just simply can't do without if you want to truly live an empowered life. I really believe that. I really believe that. I know you do too. So everyone, check it out at blackswanltd.com. Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You were amazing. You're a legend, and you definitely are the real deal. So thanks very much.
My pleasure, Jordan. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. All right, this next section here is about business and making lots of money. Here's the deal. I'm having a small group of people over to my home in Los Angeles, and the question all of them are asking is, what's next in life? These are people who had massive success already, and they're looking to see what's that one thing, that one distinction that will take them to the next level of money and success. So maybe getting close right now to that 7 figures a year. Maybe you're trying to get to 8 figures a year. The point is that this is an opportunity for you right now to come to my house in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles here, right? And join with 9 other people, all of them ultra high achievers, to attend my mastermind event, which is led by me. Now, what's going to happen here is very special, and it's going to be nothing short of life-changing. You and this group of top business leaders are going to spend the weekend with me in intense, regimented brainstorming sessions, where you're also going to get to have some time, about an hour or more, with one-on-one consulting with me personally, along with a special breakout session where I'm going to be sharing the most cutting-edge secrets of sales, marketing strategy, things I'm using myself right now to scale my own businesses in a massive way. But the real magic, by the way, of this mastermind is you're also going to get to sit in the hot seat in front of all these other top performers. In other words, every person in the mastermind is going to have that opportunity for an hour or more to sit in the hot seat, where all the collective energy, brain power, and experience will be laser guided on you, focused on you and your company, and helping you take things to the next level. Things that you thought were impossible before this day will start to become very possible for you as soon as you leave. When this is over, you're going to go home feeling energized, with new ideas, new plans, and most importantly, a network of very powerful new contacts who are going to help you make them happen fast. In other words, I'm opening up my entire Rolodex to you, as all the people who are attending to do the same. I'm telling you, the results that you're going to get here from this mastermind will be nothing short of staggering. Now, a little bit about how this actually works. First, you're going to fly into Los Angeles, and my driver, Abdul, will pick you up at the airport. We'll have your favorite drinks waiting for you at my house. We'll also have a world-class chef there to cater some of the best meals you've ever had. This is going to be fun, and it's going to be about learning and business and camaraderie, all the best things in life wrapped up into one. I guarantee you will walk out of this mastermind event with a new, improved, much bolder and more powerful vision for your future, a new plan, and massively powerful new context to take your life and your business to the next level. So what you need to do right now is go to jordanbelfort.com/mastermind and apply. That's jordanbelfort.com/mastermind and apply right now. Do not miss this opportunity. It's once in a lifetime, and it's life-changing. All right, real quick, listen, if you're a CEO, you're a sales manager, or you're involved in hiring for your company, I want you to check out my new organization, Straight Line Hiring. What we do is we deliver expertly trained salespeople to companies like yours. World-class salespeople trained by me and delivered to you on demand. Go to my website, jordanbelfort.com. Check out Straight Line Hiring, the only way to grow your company with certainty.